Obviously, it's completely up to us, but I think it's a good idea considering the level of participation the VFW has in local community service events and the high number of veterans and their families that we have in our community.
So not only are you asking for support, you're asking specifically for a letter of support?
A letter of support, yes.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Do we have a motion for adoption as presented?
So the motion is, or the recommendation by the Partnership Committee is that the City of Yakima would draft a letter of support for...
Presuming that this bill will get reintroduced in the following session.
Correct. There's a motion. I don't know if there's a second. Yeah.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Yes.
I'm sorry to be crabby about this. I certainly support veterans, but I object to the way this is presented with the Partnership Committee not even clarifying what it is we're voting for or where we are in the process. There's not a document about this. Where it says VFW, does this include veterans who haven't been deployed out of the country? I assume it does.
This is specifically to exempt purchases that VFW posts. So for instance, if you went into a VFW and you purchased a meal, you'd be tax exempt.
Okay, I really think it would be appropriate to offer more information about what it is we're being asked to support. As far as the Healing Species program, you know, certainly that program can go to the GRIT task force and ask to be considered by their partner organizations, but I will not vote to support it.
Okay. Are there any other comments, questions?
Yeah, I have a comment, and I guess I want more of a question. Are there other bills that the Partnership Committee will be considering for
Not this year.
for lobbying
I think
priorities?
it's been on a case-by-case basis. We did, the Partnership Committee also serves as the Legislative Committee.
On behalf of the full council?
On behalf of the full council, correct. And so at the beginning of the year, we drafted our legislative priorities and we moved those forward. But it also was at other points where we had to, on a case-by-case, add or review other bills, and we added those onto our legislative priorities. And so I don't see any different than the way we've handled our issues in terms of adding items to legislative priorities.
At the direction of full council.
Correct.
And to expand on that, essentially, I had to make a decision. The post commander, Al Pineda, asked me if I could help to see if council would consider a letter of support. I felt that as a member of partnerships, I would see if we even had consensus among partnerships. We did, so we bring it here, and if you don't want to do it, just don't vote for it.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I don't so much feel that I don't want to do it, but that I object to not having a complete presentation of where we are with this. And really, the 2019 legislative session is over, so can't we at least clarify which legislative session we're talking about?
Sure. So I think at this point we can choose to wait till it comes up in another bill in another session, or we can write a letter of recommendation to support tax exemption for the VFW. Or if you prefer, we can go back to the post commander or to our state legislators and see. Yes. I don't recognize you. She does. Kathy.
Ma'am?
You can finish.
Okay. I would like to see the letter written first, and then we can vote.
Which letter? The letter from the city council?
The letter that's being, the hypothetical letter that's being discussed here that will be for the 2020 legislative session. I'd like to see the letter written first, and then we can vote for or against it.
Do you want to authorize staff and direct staff to write a hypothetical letter? Because that's what the stage we're at.
Well, my recommendation was that we bring a draft letter, not a, that was my recommendation, that we ask staff to bring back a draft letter then, so that we can consider it, but we're asking full consensus of the council to be able to authorize the city manager to do that. And so we wouldn't be voting on the actual letter itself.
Pardon me.
Please, go ahead.
Can we have the motion repeated?
Move that the City of Yakima draft a letter of support if this bill gets reintroduced.
I think that is the proper process that we have established in the past. We do have a draft that comes to the full council. The council votes on the draft, and then it is submitted.
It doesn't take a lot of staff time. It'll be canned and ready if they reintroduce the next session. The decision will be made to support,
Are there any-
provided there's not some sort of substantive change to the bill itself.
And we would review that in legislative and full council prior to adopting it anyway. So it is is there any other discussion? No? All right. Are we voting on all of the, all right, the motion again?
Well, no.
Voting on the
It's on
motion.
one particular.
All right. If you would repeat the motion.
That the City of Yakima draft a letter of support if this bill gets reintroduced.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it passes unanimously. Now, what about your other topics?
Well, my other topic was that the partnership committee was making a recommendation or asking staff to pass this healing species curriculum onto GRIT. Then they will determine whether or not they will implement it. So it takes it out of council's hands.
We would take it before, and we've actually done that, given to the staff, and it'll go before the GRIT steering committee.
Okay.
And so just to be clear, healing species is the subject that data are now presented on
Correct.
HCNB. Okay.
What?
Partnership.
Well, you were absent.
Partnership.
Partnership? Was it partnership?
That's
Oh,
where
okay.
it's coming-
Excuse me, Kate.
That's why it's
Partnership.
coming from partnership. All right. Do
That's-
we have a
that's
motion
it for
and a
me.
second?
Does it need,
I don't think you need a
think it
motion.
needs a
This is just an information piece that's
Okay,
been passed
all right.
forward. It'll come for action, if any, that will be determined by the steering committee.
All right, good. We're through with partnership then.
Yes.
Next, we have Council Economic Development Committee report by the chair, Mr. White.
On February 28th, the Economic Development Committee met. On the agenda was the Fulcrum Group. They presented to us about their innovation center that'll be working on being downtown, which will include apartments, offices, dining rooms, and coaching opportunities. They will have a Think Big festival held in October. And so next was we discussed the downtown destination. We'll be continuing those talks with Day to move forward with that. The Port Authority, Rob Peterson will give us a report from the Chamber's meeting on March 13th at the next Economic Development Committee meeting. Gene Brown gave us a briefing on the opportunity zones, which are the mill site, downtown Yakima, Union Gap, and education. Rob Peterson is continuing to follow up on the CWU air terminal. That doesn't seem to be going anywhere, but and then John Cooper gave us a update. The RFQs are out for the expansion of the convention center. And then next we have the is Rob going to give us a report on the Flyway KM at this meeting?
Not tonight, no.
Okay.
At Economic Development Committee meeting.
Oh, he's going to give it to us next. Okay, so he'll be bringing us a presentation on to develop and adopt an airline incentives program for additional air services, and then the shipping container ordinance. Are we discussing that right now?
Excuse me?
The shipping container ordinance.
That's on the agenda for this evening.
And the airport presentation's on the 28th.
On the 28th, next meeting.
Yeah, the shipping containers further down.
Item 10.
Okay. Well, I have the same item on my agenda, so I think we'll discuss it later.
Okay.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right. Any questions for Councilmember White? Thank you. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. A council member may request an item be removed from or added to the consent agenda. If approved by the council, any items removed from the consent agenda will be placed on the regular agenda for discussion and consideration. Are there any requests?
I'd
Madam
like to
Mayor.
add, oh, sorry. I was just going to say I'd like to add item 8 and 9.
I was going to add 8.
Do you have any objection? Does anyone have any objection for 8 and 9?
I'm sorry, if you'll bear with me, my Novus agenda just
Yeah.
crashed. Let me see what those items are. Yeah, thank you.
I did have a question on 9, actually.
So 8 is
8.
approved, okay.
I have no issue
No
with either
issue?
8 or 9.
Well, I think we have an issue on 9, if I'm hearing correctly.
Yeah, I just have a question.
So we
Is
just take
it-
it off consent.
Is it something that could be just asked quickly?
Can we ask that question right now on
Sure.
on the White
Sure.
Pal? I just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify that it appears that the new agreement is for 5 years.
Thank you. I'll hold on.
Sarah, is Sarah Watkins here? Sarah worked on that agreement.
Just stick to the
Good evening. Yes, the agreement is for 5 years, and then it has the option to continue on
Okay.
automatically unless it's terminated.
Thank you, that answers the
Yep.
question. All right, otherwise we need to take it off. All right, 8 and 9 are off the consent agenda.
Not on.
I mean on, pardon me. Clerk, if you'd read the consent agenda, please.
Item 6A is accept council committee minutes. Item B is approve payment of disbursements for the period of February 1st through 28th, 2019. Item C is a resolution authorizing a contract with Selon Construction, Inc. for city project number 2489, which provides for the cleaning and coating of biosolid digesters at the City of Yakima wastewater treatment plant. Item D is a resolution authorizing an interlocal agreement for stop formula grant program funding between the Yakima Police Department and the Yakima County Sheriff's Office. Item 9 is a resolution authorizing the award to and execution of a lease purchase option agreement with Y Hotel LLC for city property located at 1808 North First Street. Item 9 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the Washington Fruit and Produce Community Center Operation and Maintenance Agreement with the Yakima Police Activities League.
Do we have a,
move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
thank you, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second. Do either one of you have a comment? I don't think so. We will, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Next on the agenda is item 7, public comment. This is an opportunity for community members to comment on items not on the agenda for tonight's business meeting. If you would like to speak during public comment, you must have filled out a slip on the table on the outside of the council chamber doors. Indicate which agenda item you wish to speak to and hand it to the city clerk before the agenda item is called. Public comment remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person. The council will listen to comments made during public comment, but likely will not respond directly to concerns or questions during tonight's meeting. City staff will be directed to research an issue and make a report to the council at a later date. Tony Sandoval, I asked at the beginning, Tony,
That's Tony Corsi.
No, Corsi. Sandoval's over there.
I want to make sure that we understand that the public comments are to be done at the beginning of the meeting.
Just don't allow it.
No, we're not going to.
Okay, good.
Tony, it's nice to see you.
Sandoval.
Please, go ahead.
Mr. Sandoval.
Do you want to?
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Tony Sandoval. I live in the city of Yakima. I wanted to address the hiring of the new chief. I haven't heard any publicity yet, so I decided to take matters into my own hand, and I actually do it today, get it out into the community. I also called TV stations already, and then I talked to Randy, and he said that news release is going to go out here pretty soon, probably tomorrow now. So I would like to invite the community to a public forum this Saturday, 5:30, Yakima Convention Center on the south side. I think I got that right. So Randy should be expecting calls from the TV station, because I told him that to bug Randy, to get a hold of him about further details as far as other meetings that might be open. I think they're meeting with the union and other individuals, interviewing the finalists for the police chief. So that's one. Another thing is that, as people know, I've been kind of obsessed with trying to figure out how to fight crime. And so I'm kind of excited that we're going to get a new chief, that I want to stay positive, that he will or she will stop the killings that's happening. The last one actually just happened 5 blocks from my house, and it's in Mr. White's district. So I researched what kind of questions to ask a potential chief, and there were six of them that came up that intrigued me. So I'll make them available to you, Cliff, if you want, and whoever wants them, go ahead and get them from Cliff, or you could delete, whatever I send you. The one that kind of stood out, and the reason I can't go through all the 6 questions because it's going to take a while, and you only get 3 minutes, right?
We're getting out, running out of time.
Okay. It would be the last one. It says, ask about police reform. And in that, it says that they recommend community policing. And that's something that I've been on for a long time, actually. And in a nutshell, before my time, before the buzzes, it boils down to the police department, the police chief, police rank and file, work with the community. Because as you know, the police patrol car is not going to be there all the time. And all right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, may I make a clarification?
Yes.
The open public session for a meet and greet for the community for police chief candidates is Friday, March 22nd at the Convention Center at 5:30. As I've been discussing with council, the process moving forward, applicants will be here Thursday. There are 4 panels that they will be interviewing with, a professional panel of law enforcement professionals, a panel that represents all of the unions that that serve in Yakima Police Department, a community panel that made up of community leaders, and then a city staff panel. And then a council member will be participating on 2 of those panels, the community panel and the city staff panel, Councilmember Gutierrez and Councilmember Mendez. And then I will also have time with each of the candidates. On Friday, the 22nd, from 1:30 to 3 o'clock, there will be an open meet and greet for YPD, all the staff members of YPD. We originally tried to schedule that at the YPD training facility, but I think there's a conflict for that, so we'll need to move that location. But 5:30 to 7:30 on Friday, March 22nd, is the open community meet and greet for the candidates.
Thank you. John Procipio. Welcome. Would you please repeat it? Thank you.
My name is John Procopio.
Procopio.
I am here representing members of SEIU 1199 and caregivers at Estrella Regional Medical Center, formerly Yakima Regional. In 2017, we were purchased by Sunnyside Hospital, now Astria Healthcare. Currently, we are in a labor dispute fighting for a fair contract that respects the values and work we do for our community. We have taken actions within our hospital, but we are asking for the council's help. Allow me to explain, please. Our CEO, John Gallagher, committed to investing in our hospital and community by expanding services. However, that has not been our experience. Every day we hear rumors that our hospital is being sold, we've declared bankruptcy, or that we are closing. We believe that this instability is causing problems with the community and patient volume coming into the hospital. And we believe that Memorial does not have enough beds to care for our community on its own, and therefore the importance of having 2 facilities in this community, both trying competitively to provide the best possible for our community. With so much uncertainty, we've tried to seek out answers from John Gallagher, who is the head of Astria Health and is supposedly now the CEO of Regional Hospital, but administration keeps telling us it's simply a billing issue and that they are working on fixing the problem and that they are committed to keeping Astria open and financially stable. So far, that's all we're hearing, and we believe it pretty much to be lip service. We need to know what is happening with our hospital in order to partner with management to keep our doors open and safely care for our community. We are coming to the City Council to ask that you join us in going to our administration to help us get serious, legitimate answers that our community deserves to hear. We ask, respectively, that you would join us next week on Wednesday, 9 a.m. at the hospital to attempt to reach management and get some of those answers, and we're hoping that your influence will help to accomplish that.
Thank you, Mr. Procopio.
Any questions?
No.
Thank you.
We're fine, thank you. Mr. Gertz, you're next. You can wait until he's up here. Your time starts now.
Thank you. This is in a letter that is to be delivered to Mayor Coffey and City Manager Cliff Moore. As you know, the safety of our community has a direct impact on tourism, employment, economic vitality, and much more. As the Yakima Valley Trends Report states, and I quote, "Indicators of public safety portray how well residents can lead their lives without fear of illegal activities harming them. The indicators in this category largely adopt statistics used by law enforcement to track outcomes. The trends provided in these categories give a sense of overall safety in the Yakima County." End of quote. The Chief of Police plays a large and very important role in determining the best practices to keep our citizens and the entire Yakima community safe. The national average tenure of Chief of Police is 3.7 years. In the last 18 years, Yakima has had a total of 6 police chiefs. Each of them have had their own unique impact on our community. But unfortunately, most of that fades from the memory due in part to the relatively short time they hold that position before the next candidate takes their place with their own brand of leadership. To say that continuity is lacking would be an understatement. It is important that the next person to fill this role has the ability to not only lead the department, but also make a connection and be accepted by the community. Dedication, knowledge, leadership, integrity, and a long-term commitment to Yakima are vital factors considered for whoever fills this role. We believe that Acting Chief Gary Jones has displayed these characteristics. We are aware that there was a about the application process. However, we urge you to reconsider him as a viable candidate for this important position. Although it may ultimately be decided that Acting Chief Jones is not the best candidate for the job, to not consider him in the recruitment and hiring process is not to consider all available and qualified applicants. We thank you for taking time to listen to our position. If you'd like to discuss this in more detail, please let us know from the Yakima Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we have Ira Gavin. Ira, I know you're here. Oh, I need to speak
You're
up?
out there, the TV
Oh,
was
okay.
low. I apologize.
No, get this a little closer. As I mentioned, we'll keep the aisle
Yep,
clear.
we're going to bring a few officers up front here, and then the
Okay.
rest are going to stay in the back.
That's fine.
Council, I'm here to speak to you today, and I would like to request before we begin that we receive an exemption to the 3-minute rule and ask for the 5-minute rule based on the fact that I have a group that I'm speaking here for, and today, as I know last time I was here, I was asked where the group was, so I brought the group
You've
with us
got the
this
group
time.
there. All right,
You
5
guys can
minutes.
fill in up front.
You can come over to this. You can come over to this wing if you'd like to. We just need to keep the aisle clear.
You have to stand next to Officer Yates is the only condition. of that. So,
All right, your time begins.
thank you. Council, thank you. My name is Ira Cavan, and I stand before you today as the chairman of the YPPA, the union which represents 122 officers and sergeants of the Yakima Police Department. I think it's important to cover a little bit of my history so you understand my experience with the city. Exactly 19 years ago, in March of 2000, I walked through the front doors of the Yakima Police Department, a fresh-faced, naive kid from Selah here to do a ride-along. That day, I fell in love with the city, my department, and dedicated myself to my chosen profession, which is law enforcement. My story is not unique. I represent 121 other professionals, each with their own unique story, but all of us joined for the same goal, which is public safety. Today, I take no joy in delivering the following message to you as the council. At the end of February, the association, after months of meetings and extensive discussion, passed a resolution with nearly 98% of our members stating that we have no confidence in Cliff Moore as the city manager of Yakima. During his tenure, Mr. Moore has adopted policies and repeatedly engaged in behaviors which undermine the ability of the police department to provide professional and effective law enforcement service to this community. Mr. Moore has censored officers at public forums, filtered and screened information provided to you and the council, and repeatedly undermined division heads across multiple areas of the city. He declines to allow his department heads, who are the subject matter experts in their fields, to manage their personnel without his micromanagement. He refuses to confront dishonesty in certain managers with whom he favors, despite being presented with evidence of their dishonesty. With respect to the 2019 budget, he provided misleading or inaccurate information to the council, which forced unnecessary cuts to public safety staffing. Mr. Moore has been critical and even exerted pressure on first responders who have sought professional help for post-traumatic stress issues incurred during their service to the city. With respect to the current police chief search, we would request the council halt this process as we feel Mr. Moore is not capable of selecting the next best police chief for this city. Just this week, we have learned that Mr. Moore is currently in the process of applying for a job outside the city of Yakima. If he is intent on leaving the city, how can we trust him to make the critical decision of finding the next leader for the police department of this community? The men and women of the Yakima Police Department are called on to confront the toughest and worst problems within our community. We have and will continue to suit up each day to serve this city with the most professional and competent service we can provide. But it is difficult when we feel like we have one arm tied behind our back. A letter containing our concerns in more detail has been emailed to you. We ask that you as a council examine our concerns and take into consideration that these come from 122 dedicated public servants. I invite any of you who wish to speak directly to us on these issues to reach out to us and meet with us. We know that this community and that you as a council support us as law enforcement in this community, and we appreciate that and we are grateful for that. We come to you today asking for relief from what we feel is unrelenting pressure from the city manager. I thank each of you for your dedication to the city and the roles that you serve, and look forward to your action and response on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a remaining few minutes. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
I'm sorry for that?
You have a remaining few minutes. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
No, I don't wait.
Oh, actually, I do have one thing. For the record, this association does support Gary Jones as the next police chief for this city. And I would echo the comments that were made earlier by the previous speaker. So thank you.
Thank you.
Want that letter be emailed to us?
You can send it with me, yeah.
Email.
All right, we will move on. Next, we have Alexander Houghton? I'll get it right next time. If you'd like to repeat it at the podium, please.
Sure. Hello, I'm Alexander Patton, here with the Yakima Community Champions Project. So, basically, we did a door-to-door survey throughout the 4th and 5th districts, just today and yesterday. We got 47 signatures here of people supporting the sheriff. I'm about to read that in a second. The sheriff for his decision on the Second Amendment here. That's actually 57% of all respondents who approved of this. Some respondents didn't because they didn't know English or simply had something else they had to do. So the letter here. We, the people of Yakima Valley, sincerely thank and support our Sheriff, Bob Odell, for his commitment to champion our Second Amendment rights to keep and bear arms. This support carries special importance in the wake of recent reactionary initiatives like I-1639 and in the wake of ongoing mass shootings where armed citizens could have protected themselves and their loved ones. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes our public comments. Next on the agenda is an ordinance regarding shipping containers. Supervisor Code Inspector Glenn Denman.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor Coffey. I'd like to start out just making a correction on the agenda this evening where it states that the ordinance regards intermodal shipping containers used as temporary uses as temporary and permanent uses. But, yeah, so I apologize for any confusion that may have caused. The City of Yakima Codes Division is preparing an ordinance before you today, or proposing an ordinance before you today, that is designed to ease building code restrictions related to the installation of prefabricated steel containers for use as accessory storage buildings at places of business. On February 28th, the Economic Development Committee reviewed the draft ordinance and recommended it go before full council. The first part, section 11.04.105, number 14, adds to the building code's list of items that are exempt from needing a building permit, containers used for temporary storage up to 180 days in conjunction with a current building permit or temporary use permit. This would apply to containers placed at a job site, for example, or other temporary project and removed when the project is completed, and that could also apply to events, things like that. The second part, section 1104.18.01, exempts permanently placed containers used for storage accessory to a business from needing a foundation under the container, provided that it is not accessed by the general public, but rather by business owners or their employees. While our code requires foundations for all buildings, the Codes Division believes that with the unique methods used to construct containers, requiring foundations can be excessive for those limited uses that restrict public access, similar to ones at job sites that are only accessed by contractors or their employees, except in the case of these containers it would be on a permanent basis. Those containers would still need a building permit for their placement and will be reviewed under all other aspects of our codes. A zoning review would also still be required for placement on the property, the same as for any project. There have been a couple of questions that have come up regarding how this ordinance might affect other uses. One question is, does this ordinance affect me if I want to place a container on my residential property? Under our zoning ordinance that regulates land uses, section 15.04.060F, under accessory uses, it states that cargo containers are, number one, not permitted. Cargo containers shall not be used for storage or other use within the residential B1 or B2 zoning districts for more than 2 consecutive weeks at a time. In other words, it would be containers that you would put there while you're moving or something like that, and they'd come and pick it up. You can have them there for 2 weeks at a time. This ordinance does not address those uses since they're already not permitted as far as a permanent containers placement would be concerned. However, number 2 under that same section in 1504 states that containers are allowed as an accessory use to a permitted business in the SCC, LCC, AS, GC, RD, M1, and M2 zoning districts, provided that all refrigerated cargo containers or semi-truck trailers that are not located within a designated loading dock or loading bay shall be located no less than 50 feet from any existing residential zoning district. So this container, or this ordinance would apply to those types of containers in those districts and zones. So another question that might come up, or has come up, would be, would this ordinance prevent me from installing a cargo container for use where it would be accessed by customers or by the general public, such as at a storage facility? No. If a container is allowed in the district by the zoning ordinance, it would be able to be permitted to be installed, provided that it meets all aspects of the building codes and zoning ordinance. In that case, a customer could either install a foundation or have an engineer provide an alternative, such as tie downs or something like that. So, does anybody have any questions?
I have some questions.
Yes, please, go ahead.
So what makes it inherently more dangerous for me to walk into it than a business owner? So if I want to put this in my house in a residential zone, what reasoning was used to reach? It seems to me that you have an engineering recommendation that's based on safety. So
Sure.
what is the safety risk of me walking into it as opposed to the business owner walking into it?
Well, I can't say that it would be more dangerous, except that the building code requires foundations for all buildings, and I believe that it would be a reasonable approach to having limited access to a container. So it'd be similar to, in the building code, sometimes there's things for like houses where people live in every day. They can have different provisions than what you would have in a commercial building where they're not familiar with their surroundings. So that might be an example.
But specifically to the residential zone, the determination is that a shipping container is incompatible with the residential zoning requirements.
So I take it, so you feel that this is something that most residents would not prefer parked in their neighbor's yard?
That's correct.
Yeah, and this doesn't apply to the residential zones anyways.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I have the same general question on why general public can't, why basically is what this is saying, that somebody cannot start a business or have a business in Yakima that rents out storage unit containers that are on an improved surface.
Right.
That's what it's.
This
that's what
ordinance wouldn't apply to that, so they would just go through all the provisions of the building code and provide a foundation.
So they would
tie
have
downs,
to.
things like that.
So what about current businesses that are currently operating, renting out storage units in Yakima, or using them as rental or as storage units, either rented or not, that are not on a foundation?
So that was the case that came before us, and we evaluated, and that individual has an engineered solution. I believe it's a tie-down in that particular case.
Well, actually, the engineer was able to show that it didn't need a foundation or a tie down because of the way they were configured with wind loads and things like that.
So it doesn't preclude that kind of a business from happening. It
Right.
just has to have an engineer review of the configuration, and then if recommended by the engineer, a tie-down or a foundation.
Sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So is the owner of the storage unit business going to be allowed to continue to have the containers that he has or not?
Yes.
Yes.
That's a yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know who you're asking again. Yeah, they have an approved use. They got a permit. They had hired an engineer, and it's all good. And another company could do the exact same thing today,
Thank you.
even under this ordinance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So with this ordinance, could he now pull all those foundations that he paid money for out from under those containers and be in compliance if we pass this ordinance?
Well, okay, first of all, this wouldn't apply to him because it would be more of a general public use, right? But he didn't put foundations under the containers.
He did not.
No, he did not.
Okay.
Yeah. He got he hired an engineer, and they determined that it wouldn't be necessary for his
All right.
condition. Yeah.
Given the configuration.
In the configuration, right.
So this is a configuration issue, because Conex containers seem relatively simplistic to me, and
They are.
rather sturdy.
They are, exactly. And so really, this is a reasonable approach, in my opinion, to allow their use in a limited basis.
What is the will of the council? Are there more questions? Clarity?
Was there a recommendation from the Economic Development Committee on this issue?
To bring it forth in this current state.
But did
to be
they have a
approved by-
recommendation to approve or to?
Actually, yeah, Holly and Dulce motioned.
Yeah,
So-
I moved to pass the ordinance.
To the pass the ordinance as it stood when it came to economic development.
Which is what's before you tonight.
To pass this.
Yes, the ordinance before you tonight.
Yes.
Pretty simple.
Okay.
So that was my actual motion.
Is that your motion?
Second it.
We have a motion and a second, and would you like to speak to your motion?
No, I think that we found a way to have a reasonable approach with dealing with this issue.
Okay.
I'm in favor of the motion.
All right. Council members, anyone else? No? No? Councilmember White, you look like you're just on the edge of saying something.
You know, I was hesitant and definitely cautious. I didn't want to deny people of having a business opportunity in Yakima, because I use the same service just outside of Yakima, literally on the border. But I think it sounds like a reasonable approach to allow people to do the same type of business, and just to have an engineer come in and certify everything is sound.
Okay.
So.
Are we ready for roll call? It appears so. Oh, and if you'd read the ordinance, please.
This is an ordinance amending the City of Yakima Municipal Code, Chapter 11.04, Building Code.
Thank you. Roll call.
Coffee?
Yes.
Gutierrez?
Yes.
Funk?
Yes.
Hill?
No.
Mendez?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
All right. It passes 5-1. Yes. Anything else? Nothing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That will take us on the agenda to other business. Are there any items that members would like to discuss under other business?
I have something.
You have something?
Yes.
All right.
It's very short, more of a public service announcement, which I hope is appropriate. Members of the Yakima Valley's Filipino American community will hold their 66th anniversary at the Hall on March 24th. It'll take place from noon to 4 at the Filipino Community Hall at 211 West 2nd Street. That's in Wapato. Yes, yeah. As a commemoration of the hall's construction, traditional Filipino foods and desserts will be featured, along with a 2 p.m. performance by Wapato youth folk dancers. Tickets are $15 for adults, $12 for seniors, $10 for children, 7 to 12, and tickets can be purchased at the Filipino Community Hall.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to share on behalf of the Public Safety Committee a couple of announcements. There's going to be a fraud/scam presentation at the Lions Club Conference on March 23rd, done by Detective Matt Lee. And then also on March 29th, the Yakima Police Annual Awards Ceremony is at 5:30 in the Harmon Center. On April 5th, we have a preschool reading. The police officers will be at a preschool reading program at West Valley Library. On April 25th, we'll have a presentation again on scams and fraud at the Harmon Center. I just wanted to announce that because by the time we share it at the Public Safety Committee meeting, most of these events have already passed. So thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Councilmember Funk.
Yes, I have a point of information. Ordinarily, at this time in the meeting, we can only introduce items for the agenda at the following meeting. But I think that we have an exception for emergent business, and I'm quite concerned about the information that we have received from the police department and the imminent hire decision for a new police chief. So I would like to make a motion to discuss this tonight as urgent business, or have a reading from our parliamentarian or attorney of the exact wordage that controls making such an exemption.
Well, perhaps this will help. I'm going to adjourn this meeting to go into executive session to discuss the performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 42.30.110. The executive session will last up to 30 minutes, and there may be a discussion in open session afterwards. Do I have a second?
A second.
Does that help you with your question?
I
We
guess
have a
that's-
motion and we
that's
have a
good
second.
enough.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're
For
adjourned.
for clarification, Madam Mayor, did you want me to attend or not?
We will call upon you if that is necessary.
Okay.
Thank you.